And joining us now here in the studio, Mr. Dan Perry, International Affairs Analyst. Before we discuss here in studio, we do want to show you now live images from Tel Aviv as this weekly protest is gathering, again, calling on the government to do everything possible to bring back the Israeli hostages. If we're listening to opposition member Victor Lieberman, he's fuming over the not just constant humanitarian aid that is entering Gaza, but rather the expansion of it, saying that, in a spin-off on Let Them Have Cakes, now flour is getting into the strip, and he's saying next will be croissants.
Well, I mean, Israel's in a terrible situation, which is why many people want to look for ways to expedite it. And I guess that's the next thing we'll be discussing. But it's a no-win situation, because not letting in humanitarian aid when there are reports of hunger and of disease is not a viable option, while letting it in, of course, risks most of it being hijacked and taken to Hamas and enabling them to hold out longer. Yeah. There are many things about the current situation that are just impossible catch-22s, and all of it together amounts to a pretty good reason to not scoff at various alternatives that are being offered.
It took a while for Benjamin Netanyahu and Joe Biden to speak over the phone. It happened, but the fallout, challenging, let's put it that way.
Netanyahu can't really stomach anything too interesting about the day after, because this will get him in trouble with the extreme right, on whom he depends and on whom he may completely depend if the moderates leave his coalition, and they're only in there temporarily for the last 3 months, as we know. And in the background is the Americans' intensive desire, which I think should be shared by many Israelis as well, and certainly Gazans and people in the region, to find a way out of the war that nets positive and that puts Israel in a better place than it was on October 6th in terms of the prospects for peace and prosperity in the region. And I think the background here involves the proposal that Blinken brought to Israel and to the region some weeks ago, which at the time was received by Israel with a cold shoulder. But that, I think, was unwise, because the proposal in question has a lot to like. It would basically, if successful, bring about the rescue of all the hostages who are still alive. It would mobilize Saudi Arabia and the Arab world behind a plan to remove Hamas from power in Gaza. That is Israel's strategic goal. It would involve Saudi Arabia and the region.
Is it saying that clearly that Hamas will not be part of this potential revitalized Palestinian Authority or state minus, or you call it?
It's about a state with a rejuvenated Palestinian Authority. Now, of course, there's going to be never-ending details and discussions.
No,
and
but there is a basic question whether there will be a lawmaker from the Hamas party. This is something that Israel is finding extremely difficult to stomach, as you put it.
Of course, but let's please look at the big picture first. There's going to be quibbles aplenty. And you could ban Hamas, not be in favor of ensuring a ban on Hamas, and find some other party that is renamed, running with a lawmaker who will be no different. There may be no way to prevent that kind of outcome, but to remove Hamas and its mafia army from power in Gaza is a worthy goal. And the proposal in question would mobilize Saudi Arabia and the Arab League behind pacifying, administering, and reconstructing Gaza, which would align their interests with those of Israel strategically. It would end the war, which generals warn that if it continues ad infinitum, as some in the government would like, perhaps even the prime minister, would cost hundreds more lives of soldiers, never mind the ruination and death and devastation on the civilian side in Gaza, and would probably sacrifice the lives of all the hostages. So realistically, if the only price Israel has to pay is to enter a process that would involve accepting a Palestinian state, perhaps demilitarized at the end of the road, that is something all prime ministers since '93 have accepted, including Netanyahu recently under Trump. And of course, the cherry on top of all this is Saudi Arabia. Peace with Saudi Arabia is of economic, strategic, political, diplomatic value that is almost without equal, and it would most pleasingly undo the gift that was given to Iran on October 7th, which is to derail that process.
We want to cross to Tamar Ilama Gindin, a Iran expert at the Esri Center at the Haifa University.
The news is that there's proof, but it was a well-known thing. Even the Islamic Republic didn't really hide it, that they're controlling the whole Shiite crescent. They're supporting Shiite militias everywhere across the Middle East, and also Sunni militias like Hamas, if they're against Israel. So it's not really news. It's not anything new that they support the Houthis, or that in education and in training, and of course financially.
And Dan Perry here in the studio will chime in as well.
Well, I actually have a question, Tamara. Which narrative is more true? Does Iran inspire and assist these Shiite militias while letting them be somewhat independent? Or can we really speak of a centralized, strategic, Iran-directed plot to encircle Israel with a ring of fire, and when the Houthis fire ships, it's basically the Iranians firing? Or is it somewhere in the middle?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, because I think some of the things both the Houthis do, and of course what the Hamas did on the October 7th massacre, was not coordinated with the Islamic Republic. It was stressed both by the Islamic Republic and by Nasrallah.
The date, what was it? The plan.
But it was so clearly aligned with Iran's interest to scuttle the Israeli-Saudi rapprochement, was it not?
It's aligned with their interests, but I think they're smarter than that. I mean, they do have their interests, their expressed interests, their rhetorical interests, but they know that they should hurt Israel. They want to hurt Israel, but they don't really want to see Israel annihilated, because the day after, they have nothing to unite the Arab world around, and because they also want to control the Arab world. They want to control the whole Islamic world, and they have no excuse.
They need Israel to have something to hate, a mutual enemy.
It is
but
never.
For the time being, not isolated diplomatically, not paying a price militarily, on the brink of nuclear capability. It's not a bad time.
Getting away with everything. It's never simple and straightforward with Iran. Very frustrating to deal with.
All right, Tamar Gindin, Iran expert at the Ezra Center at the Haifa University, and host of the podcast brilliantly named Enriched Uranium. Thank you very much for this, Mr. Dan Perry. As always, pleasure to have you here in the studio. Thank you.